Now, comfort zone's obviously called comfort zone because it's a comfortable place to be. And we know that the magic happens outside the comfort zone, but sometimes we don't even know we're sitting in there. So Francois Lubbe, business coach from South Africa, shares with us today why it's so important to have somebody that's stretching you outside of your comfort zone, asking you some bigger questions for you to be able to see what's possible to achieve amazing results. Let's take a listen. Francois Lubbe, thank you so much for joining us. Tell me, why did you become a business coach?
Oh, well, that's such a
big question, right?
Big question, absolutely. Well, I have to take it back to, when I started, and that's like about 16 years ago. So in 2008. And, prior to that, I was in corporate. I was actually, in one of the big banks in South Africa. And for 23 years, quite a successful career. And, but then in 2008, the global recession impacted a lot of businesses. My opportunity then there, my door actually closed there on my corporate career. And although, so affected all, high performers, everyone. And then I was looking for, so what's next? And I've always read written in my journals, when do I become a coach? But I never had that courage to really take that step. And business is my passion. I love helping people, and passion for business, and been coaching in the corporate environment because I was in executive management at big teams. And so in reflecting, so I actually take a bit of time out, because that's when you really think. And I was reminded about, a question that one of my mentors asked me a while ago, and that was, what would you do if failure, if you didn't have any fear for failure? And that made me think. And also what's important to me, those kind of questions that I reflected on, and I just realized, and the same thing came up, a business coach. And because I love it, I love growth. I value growth a lot. I value meaningful work, and to do meaningful work, and family is important. And so when one door closed, is actually another door that opened, and I think that was the gift for me, that I then realized in every kind of, let's say, setback, or from a disaster, something beautiful is born, I believe. And when I look at life like that. And that's how I then came across ActionCOACH. I was one of the first coaches in South Africa at the point in time, went to Las Vegas. I actually thought, now I know nothing given what I've learned there. And that is after such a growth is so, I invest a lot in myself. But that was, again, I had to get out of my comfort zone, and that's what I do for businesses as well, is because that's where the growth lies. And so that's pretty much my story there, in terms of, over time, your meaning changes, and because you constantly reinvent yourself. But I love it. I've got a passion for business, and realize that, businesses perform only at a fraction of what is truly possible. And because you're so involved in the day-to-day activities, it's a lonely game. So how do you actually then step out of that into what is really, fulfilling your dreams? Because it's about fulfilling dreams, and I can help people fulfilling their dreams and their desires in terms of where they want to go. Then I've privileged to use my talent, to mix my talent with my passion, I would say, and that was a great fit for me.
Great. So when you mentioned fulfilling dreams and stepping out of the comfort zone, stepping out of your comfort zone, or helping others. How do you help others step out of their comfort zone?
Yes, that's a great point, because you are so you don't actually realize you're in a comfort zone, and so I think the first step is really to how big are your dreams, and because there's normally a fear, and to take that step, and that fear is like a false expectations that you have. And maybe to use a practical example, would say, I, for instance, help someone to take because let's use an example of, for instance, one of my clients just recently was working over weekends. He couldn't actually imagine how he doesn't open his laptop on a Saturday and to work, and he didn't have the time with the family. He always had this fear of, what if one of his clients looking for him? It's quite a successful business. They've been in business for some while. And
what type of business was he
it's
in?
actually accounting consultancy. Yeah.
Okay.
He's got he's a chartered accountant of profession, and got
what type of client wants to speak to their accountant on a weekend?
Exactly. But this is what people do, and because you've got so many clients and worried about about what possible problems are there. And I actually used like a principle. So when you think about that fear that you have, because the fear that he had was, I won't know what is going on, and what if the client's looking for me and they lose the clients, that kind of thing. And I cannot, not using my laptop, not using my phone, is constantly on. And it's like a full Saturday, for instance. And I said, okay, so if we take a snake as a poisonous snake and say, okay, so you fear that snake. That's a 10 out of 10 fear. But are all snakes poisonous? No, not. So I said, what if that snake is in a glass box? What score would you give that? So, well, that's a 1 out of 10. So you won't actually immediately stop everything, and now I suddenly don't do anything. I don't do work on Saturdays, but I can actually, a 1 out of 10 action could be, well, for 2 hours, I can do that. Then you build confidence. Then over time, ultimately, I can deal with that snake, which is 10 out of 10, and I've seen what is possible. Maybe that is just a simple example of how you get people out of how I often, there are different lenses one can look at. There's just one that immediately.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What you're saying is, and we all know that diagram of the circle, and, the arrow outside of the circle is, the comfort zone's in the middle, and outside of the circle is where the magic happens. But I love how you've said it's just step by step. It's not the big step straight away. It's not 100% shut the laptop on a Sunday, but it's, what would happen if it was 2 hours that you could put the laptop down.
Exactly. So it's those small steps. You can't jump from one side of the river to the other. You have to build that bridge, and then you then take the steps, over that bridge, and then you realize yourself, what, it is possible. And there's no magic pill. It is actually, how do you do like consistent things, small things consistently, rather than so I think I have to do that extraordinary thing immediately. It doesn't work like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did it take him before he could actually let go on a weekend?
Well, he's now currently, his life changed completely. It took him about, I think, 2-3 months just to improve already. And now he sees, but nothing to fear. I can actually, so the agreement was, you will open your laptop and emails only on a Monday after you have now, and that's not the first thing you do, after you have started your day and you have actually taken time out for yourself and, get ready and whatever you do in terms of, um, you know, uh, planning for the day, and he's there now, and I mean, it makes such a big difference for him in terms of, that freeing up time and feeling, I can actually now go and attend the sport events of my children without worrying, because it is that sense of control that you feel that you want to have. I want to have certainty, but certainty is a fallacy.
Oh.
So a lot of things that business people actually struggle with is to deal with uncertainty. But that's also, where the magic happens, and to your ability to actually, how do you behave with uncertainty? It's a big thing, because we have this fallacy, I want to have control. But if you really think of how many things do we really have control over, and so your quality of life, I think it's Tony Robbins that mentioned that your quality of life is directly in proportion to your level of uncertainty that you are prepared to entertain. And so that's
You need
again
to say
stepping
that.
out.
Can you just repeat that? Because that's gold right there. Just repeat that for me.
It is. I'm just echoing what Tony Robbins saying, and that is that your quality of life is directly in proportion with the level of uncertainty you are prepared to entertain.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, that is such a profound thing. And because, that's again, back to you mentioned, it's your comfort zone. We hate to not to have that feeling of, of uncertainty. And that's where I think COVID actually, in a sense, played a big role, and more people are realizing there's so much I don't have control over. Life is not a straight line. Yeah.
External factors that happen.
External factors, and
there are
learning
some
from that.
things. There are some things in business we should have control over. So it's a bit of a balance, though, isn't it? Like, what are some things that you should have control over in your business?
Well, I think, and that makes a big difference in results, is how you spend your time. So, so if there's one thing in that all of us have in common, and that is time. And if you look at time as an asset, what you want from an asset? You want to get return. You want to get the highest return on your investment. And so in other words, if time is my asset, then I need to spend time on the areas that give me the highest return on my investment. So we have control over that. But again, we spend time, or business owners spend their time on things that they feel, but that's my comfort zone. But that's not where the growth lies. So because it's that day-to-day running at 160 kilometers an hour, don't take that time out and think, but what are the areas that will give me the highest return on investment? And to make that shift is quite a challenge, because it is actually fed by, my belief system. Where do I need to, to spend time on? So I think the one thing that we really have control over is how do we invest our time, because that's direct correlation in terms of where you invest your time and the results that you get. So there's a lot of waste in even try to solve the wrong problem.
It's so easy to do, isn't it?
And then
get
just
distracted
imagine
by
the resources that you put behind those priorities, and meanwhile you've actually you identified the problem as, but that's actually the symptom. And now you put the resources behind that. The waste of that, you're building a machine that takes resources to solve that, but meanwhile that's not really solving your problem, because how do you know that? You see, you've got the same results the next year. That same problem you come back. So time It's an investment. That's an investment that all of us have. And where do you invest your time? What gives you energy? What gives you sustainability? Also, the time outside of the business. The things that give us that new insights, put yourself in a new environment. So what you do with your time, I believe, is what we have control over.
And it's amazing what happens when you give yourself some space away from the business, the clarity that you can get just by having, that time away from the office.
Absolutely.
And so what are some...
Change your environment.
Change your environment. 100%.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions that you ask business owners on, how to step outside? Like, what are the things that you ask them to step outside their comfort zone?
Well, I think, so questions that I would maybe explore on is that where do they actually invest most of their time on? Where do they spend their time, their time on? Because you have got different hats that you have to wear, and some of those hats are actually in the back burner because you're spending your time on, on the things that you feel uncomfortable with. And the question is the impact of that, on the business, because what does it cost you? Because you don't have the results that you desire, and what is keeping them, them there. So it's normally what is their belief about who they are, their belief system. I think a lot of, the thoughts that they have about themselves, how does it serve them? Does it really open new opportunities, possibilities? And because those thoughts come from, from your past. We actually, in a sense, you are jailed by your past stories. And it's not always that obvious from the beginning, but you have to explore, who he is or she is, and what's the most of the thoughts that they have about themselves, about the business, what is truly possible, how big do they think? Because many instances, you have this survival language that you are using. And you cannot, I just have to pay my bills, right? And not thriving. And so what's a voice that you listen to is a key. And whose voice is that? Is that really, serving, and then what are the, what other voices can you listen to? And because you have to really change your thoughts, that's another thing that we have control over, is the thoughts. Does the thought produce the results that you're after? Does it actually, or does it maybe, constrain you? And we have we have a choice. But habits, it is a journey. But those are the things, if you committed to growth, committed to improve yourself, to always ask, what's next? What do I have to, I learn every day, I learn from mistakes, and I'm willing to learn. Then the possibilities are endless.
And it's also about having a bigger dream. Isn't it? So what are some of the questions that you ask of your clients or business owners that you speak to about why are you in business? What's the big dream that you've got for your future?
Excuse me. Well, I would ask them what was their dreams when they started the business. And quite often they kind of forgot those dreams because they have put them on the back burner because disappointments came and so on. So if you were your let's say your youth again, when you were young, what would you dream? What would really excite you? What will give you that goosebumps, that, that you feel, wow, imagine that. Can you imagine if there were no limitations? What would you dream? And I think it is that exploration about, and then suddenly, but you have to also be out of your normal environment, the place that, that there's no interferences, and that start the process of, of thinking. I mean, imagine changing. How often do you change your environment? What, where did your big dreams come from in the past? In what situations were you? Where were you? And well, I haven't been there again. I'm too busy. And that, you start actually trying to unwind that again, reinvent yourself, truly think what is your passion? What is it that you feel that, but you know what, that is such a meaningful, it will mean so much to me. And, yeah, and you
Should
have to
have evoked the emotion, shouldn't it?
evoke that,
So what's a story? What's a story of a client? Like, what's the biggest dream that one of your clients has had that's come true?
Sure. There are so many, but so maybe I can share a story of one of the clients, because there's so many clients that their stories actually to be rewarded for their for their stories. But one of my clients that they've been in business for 37 years. I mean, when you look at the failure rate of businesses, and to be 37 years in business is such an amazing achievement. And you would think, but you know everything, you have achieved what you wanted to achieve, and it's a family business. I love, because it even make it more complex. There's a lot more emotions in in family businesses. So it is Brian is the founder, CEO, and then his son and daughter, they form part of Exco. They've got 55 employees. Engineering business. That's another thing. I don't know anything about engineering, but I love that, because then I don't become a consultant. And so they were doing okay, but they actually felt there's kind of lack of vision. Now what now? I've achieved this, and I don't have the time out to really travel the world, to do the things that, because the business is a vehicle to give you what you want. Does it build the wealth? Does it actually give you the lifestyle? Didn't have the lifestyle because it's too busy, yeah. So the too busy, involved in fixing day-to-day stuff, and neglected his family, neglected his health. So, and then they decided, but it is time to reset, to reinvent themselves. And this is where I then, as a coach, actually, came in. And, yeah, so we started with the process, and the results are just amazing. I mean, I can share some of those, because I think it is really, it's really magnificent. And, it is such a privilege to be part of a journey like that, a business that's been so long in business. And, Brian actually spoke at a coaching session with him yesterday, and he said to me, I never dreamed this was possible. And so it has gone beyond what he had thought is possible. So just from a survival to a thriving, in because they were breaking even. It was the impact of economy, politics, all of those things. And then so I'm coaching them since 2021. So it's now, we're going now in our third year. And so the business was also reliant on maybe 2 or 3 big clients. So it was like 80% contribution, which is a big risk. They wanted to change that as well. The time, and then they started to achieve personal best in sales for the first time in 37 years. In the second year, the profit grew by 300%. And now this year so far, and this is where Brian said he didn't think that dream was possible. In 6 months, they've done more than what they've done in 2 years.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and they were as I said, it's business has been 37 years in business. I mean, you start to know, you think you know what you're doing, but there's so much hidden value in a business that because you're running day to day, you run at 160 kilometers an hour. You don't take the time out at white space, whiteboard thinking, and that's where you need someone from the outside, maybe, to help you to look at your business and yourself through another lens, because there's multiple lenses. And so it is, and this basic fundamental things that, that we did. He also last year he went for a full month to Namibia for holiday without connection and cell phone with the business. He and his son went overseas, and he's also now going as many times as I do, going to the Kruger Park, which we love, and traveling. And that is just maybe, there's still so much. We totally underestimate what is truly possible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's huge growth.
Yeah.
And so if you were to put that down to like 1 or 2 things, what were the key things that you felt really did? Was it a bigger dream? Was it strategy?
Yeah. I think the clarity on direction in terms of what is the vision that would really bring that excitement back, the energy that I feel not so tired and excited, and get the team behind that, so that everyone is excited. Clarity on direction in terms of vision and in terms of goals. What is it that you how must this business look like that would really make that impact? And then simple things. Sometimes it is actually, basic things that's not really, they say it's in place, but it is not executed to the level that is maybe required. So clear, the team's feeling of belonging. I've got a role to play. I've got a passion. It's not just a job. I actually, I'm here for a reason. And I mean, that in itself is already such a shift in the difference that you kind of, and you go through ups and downs. What do you learn? So you become a learning organization. You think of how do you become better in problem solving? Because the better you solve problems, these results that I spoke, that's the fruit of, the roots that need to be healthy. And it's not rocket science. It is actually, but your mindset is very important. That shift from, they use the words about after a year and a half, but we were used to surviving. We don't know how to handle thriving. And that was such a profound, but a pivotal point that, I deserve thriving, because my purpose it's not always about me. It's about having that impact, on others. So, there's always the strategies that working on how to, serve your A clients, your A category clients. You had to get more, because that was like we identified. So what are the they call them the diamond clients. How can you get more of those? Putting strategies into place, because that risk of having two clients that contribute to 80% of the income. If you lose one of those clients, I mean, that's that's kind of a disaster. Okay, new things will be born from that again. But you don't want to. You want to put strategies, strategies in place. It is, how do you build the capacity? So because the engineering business also had to get new equipment that goes with the growth, you actually had to expand and looking for another building. And they bought the building, put it down the deposit a year ago, and had a plan of 5 to 10 year repayment. He said to me that they actually almost paid it off. It's those kind of things that you can't imagine that. So your belief system about who you are and what is truly possible, your thoughts that you have about yourself, you create new stories about yourself. And then to put in the work, because yes, you have to execute the strategies.
And stretching the thinking about what's possible, and that's where a coach comes in. It's getting them to think bigger, to stretch what is possible for them.
Absolutely. That's a big thing. Because I'm working from a perspective, and is that, and I'm seeing that people underestimate what is possible. You only perform at a fraction of what is truly possible, and reflecting on on your life, and then thinking so about I unlock new possibilities, identify the hidden value that that you do not normally see, and that's where the nuggets are, that one or two things that you've identified make a big difference.
How do you do that, Francois? How do you identify? You wave a magic wand.
I don't have the magic one. It comes through questions that you ask, Michelle. It's looking at a situation from another lens often open up a new possibility. That I think is that the world is not only through one lens, and this help you to see, because we all, and I mean business owners that I'm working with, you've got your blind spots. You like a golfer, you can't see your own swing. And then you actually, but the only thing, but that is the way. So it's by asking it through, looking at it through a new lens. And I think, that's a talent that I, have and developed. And it's just, when you look it through that lens, what new possibility would open up? And there's always then you realize, but a shift is required. What do I need to move away from? And what costing you, and what to, because now you want to actually make that shift that ultimately lead to to the results. And that shift is then where the comfort zone and the growth zone, that's a pivotal point that you then have to overcome, that then lead to to results. And through new results, you start seeing new opportunities. And what opportunities do you need to really put resources behind that? Your confidence grow, and you're becoming unstoppable. But it is that. Does it, that new possibility, does that actually connect with you, with your purpose, with your passion, with the impact that you want to make, the difference that you want to make? They must own it. I can't tell them, listen, that is what you must do, and that is how you must think. It is the ownership of that possibility belong to them. I help them to to start maybe to see that, because you can't see that by yourself. If you're so involved in the day-to-day activities, and you don't have the someone maybe that truly care and helping you to see through another lens at life and at yourself and at the business. And I think that often, well, every time basically, you actually see, I've never seen that. Yeah, that kind of thing. I've never seen it. Why did I not see that before?
Somebody actually reflected back to them, right? No one asked them those questions. And this is why that our formula for change we have, the dissatisfaction times vision. Plus the first steps is, why it works so well. And then you create that momentum. And like you said, the confidence grows.
Absolutely.
Great. I love that.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what are they doing? They've just had a month off. They've taken a trip. What's next for them, for this engineering firm?
Well, that's they feel that, they still, Brian need to exit so that Greg can take over and Daniel and because that's another thing that because imagine that's your baby and now the baby is growing up, but I don't want to let that baby go. That's a difficult one, but again, it doesn't happen overnight. So you have to gain the confidence of trust. Building them, how do you start involving them in making decisions that they haven't been part before? Seeing when you are away and you come back, you were away for a month, you come back, actually the business sometimes even better than what it was before I left. and I think those are the things that you then realize. It's actually, again, that fear, so the snake analogy that I used is so you learn from going away, start for short periods, taking it longer. Don't go to places that you don't have connection, because that habit of, hey, I want to look at my cell phone, I want to look at if there's no connection, you can't really do anything about it. So that forces you, and that takes you out of your comfort zone completely. And realizing, wow, it is actually, because one of the biggest challenges, I think, is that difficulty to let go. Yeah. So because it's coming from a belief system. Maybe your parents told you, or grandparents, told you, if you want to do something well, do it yourself. And that manifests then in how I do things. Now imagine if you actually if you continue with that, it leads to, ultimately, I can't do everything. It leads to burnout, and you don't get to what I mentioned earlier. Where do you really invest your time? Your time. So that to learn to trust, but it comes from small steps. Building confidence, belief in people, growing them. What do they learn? What do they need to, to develop? So I think it is all those, it's like creating that momentum, so that when you can see the differences, and you can actually see, but you have to have the right people. That's important. That's around you. I often find that business owners, they do not spend enough time in recruiting, and then they have to manage their recruitment mistakes. So you have to really make also sure that you have the right people on the bus in the right seats, and the A players. And,
that's a whole other podcast episode we could do on teams, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. All these things, you can actually have a topic, and you can have hours of discussion about it. So there's no ways we can cover everything in a podcast like this. Yeah. So
do you have, next time I see a snake, I'm going to think of you, Sir Francois.
I hope it is actually a positive association.
I hope it's in a box.
As long as it's the one that's in the glass box, you know. So the 1 out of 10.
Yeah. Any box, I don't care.
Yeah, it's amazing
we
the
have
associations
lots of snakes here in Australia.
I know
do you
that.
have snakes?
I know that. Yeah, we have. I mean, so we love to go to the Kruger Park, and I mean that's kind of my second home, and you know, often we see snakes there as well. But yeah, it's not as many as what you have in Australia. Not, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yes, we have a lot.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been great. I've loved what you've shared today. I want to wrap up with 3 questions. Now, you've got a lot of books on your bookshelf behind you there. What's your favorite business book?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I have more or less read 1 book a week since I joined Action Coach. I mean, I love reading. So to choose one, but the one that comes to mind perhaps is, you know, the book of Keith Cunningham, The Road Less Stupid. It's kind of interesting title. But the principle there is that business owners are smart, but we do stupid things. It's like, you know, he calls it dump tax. And maybe my connection with Keith, because I attended you know, 4-day MBA program with him in Sydney, and yeah, that's why that one maybe comes to mind. But yeah, so there's the, you know, I always get maybe one nugget from a book. When, you know, when you read through it, you get so many nuggets, but when you think back, you actually and I mean, so Keith's point is that, you know, when if I have the ability, you know, if you think about how much money you would have had if I gave you the ability to unwind your 3 financial decisions that you've made. How much money is it that you would have actually had in your, you know, bank account? And there's that kind of realizing the decisions that we make and don't really think through about it in a way that maybe what we've described also during this podcast. Yeah, so that one I think
Great
is
book. Great book. And who's been the best mentor or coach for you, Francois?
So I've had many in the corporate career as well. Can I mention 2? Difficult to only one. Well, one is Lorenza van Schalkwijk. She's been my mentor, and because you know, in the corporate environment, I was in a, you know, kind of like executive development program as well, and since then, I learned a lot from her in terms of when I have challenges and opportunities and want to. So Lorenza is one, definitely, because she helped me also to think differently, multiple lenses that I refer to. Those are the things that I actually applied now. And another one's actually an existing action coach, Bruce Wilson. He is just an amazing coach, and he's been coaching me for a long time. And so again, it's like the questions that they ask you to make you think, that challenge you, but also that kind of, we call it in Action Coach a BFO, that blinding flash of the obvious, you know, the aha moment that give you that direction that is actually life-changing. And yeah, so there were many others, but yeah, I would mention those, Bruce and Lorenza.
And best piece of business advice, or just advice in general, that you've ever received?
It was from my grandfather. So he had a lot of wisdom. He was only 5 years of his life at school. So, I mean, primary, but he had such a wisdom. And when I was at university, he said to me, you must continue to study as long as you can, because that's one thing that no one can take away from you. And I think that put me at that stage. I didn't think so deeply about it than what I'm thinking now, because I mean, I was a student. But if I look back at that statement, because I've learned a lot from him as well. And that statement actually was a trajectory in terms of my, life. And then through that, I get a lot of input and advice and learning and growth. So yeah, it is that growth, that constantly improving myself. That was for me. And so when I'm thinking back, then I think, but that must have been the best advice, because it's, from my grandfather.
Great. Francois, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
It was a privilege. Thank you for the opportunity, Michelle.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.